Most gardeners think compost equals soil improvement. That mistake costs them years. Piles get turned, watered, monitored and celebrated while the actual soil underneath stays compacted, hungry and biologically weak. The real-world consequence is obvious if you pay attention. Crops stall mid-season, water disappears too fast or not at all, nutrients spike and crash, and roots never explore deeply. Compost piles feel productive, but they delay the one thing that actually matters: stable humus forming where plants are growing. I stopped building compost piles because they were stealing time and attention from soil biology. What I wanted wasn't decomposed material sitting in a bin. I wanted black, stable humus forming directly in beds without turning, mixing, or babysitting anything. And after testing this across in-ground gardens, raised beds, and even hydroponic media, I can tell you flat out, humus forms faster and more reliably when you stop trying to manage decomposition and start feeding soil organisms correctly. If you're serious about food production, subscribe now. This channel is about what actually works in real gardens, not rituals we inherited without questioning. The biggest lie in gardening is that decomposition and humus formation are the same thing. They're not. Decomposition is what happens when microbes burn through material fast, releasing nutrients and heat. Humus is what's left when carbon becomes biologically stable, bonded to minerals and resistant to breakdown. Compost piles are optimized for decomposition. Beds need humification. When you chase fast breakdown, you get short-lived fertility and long-term soil collapse. What finally clicked for me was realizing that humus forms under low disturbance, constant moisture, and steady carbon input, not oxygen blasts and repeated mixing. Every time you turn a pile, you favor bacteria that burn carbon quickly. In beds, I wanted fungi, actinomycetes, protozoa, and microarthropods doing slow, patient work. That meant leaving material where it belongs and letting the soil food web decide the pace. In a small backyard garden, this started with how I layered carbon. Instead of piling scraps together and hoping for balance, I spread thin layers directly on the soil surface. Roughly 1 inch of shredded dry carbon, leaves, cardboard torn by hand, dried grass or chopped stalks, followed by 1/2 inch of nitrogen-rich material like fresh weeds, kitchen scraps or green prunings. Then I covered that with a light soil dusting or finished compost if I had it, not to feed plants but to inoculate microbes. Water went on until everything was evenly moist but not soggy, the same moisture level you'd want for seed starting. Then I walked away. No turning, no mixing, no checking temperatures. Within 3 weeks, the surface darkened. Within 2 months, earthworms started pulling material down. By the end of the season, the top 3 inches had turned into crumbly black humus that smelled like forest soil, not compost. That layer stayed stable through dry spells and heavy rains, and the beds stopped crusting. Raised beds responded even faster. Wood-framed beds tend to dry out and lose structure, especially when filled with lightweight mixes. Here, I used thicker carbon layers closer to 2 inches of dry material followed by 1 inch of green. Because raised beds drain more freely, I watered more deeply at the start, making sure moisture reached the bottom of the bed. The key was consistency. Instead of one big addition, I added material every 2 to 3 weeks in thin layers. By mid-season, roots were penetrating deeper and irrigation frequency dropped by nearly half because humus increased water-holding capacity without causing waterlogging. One thing I stopped doing entirely was mixing organic matter into the soil. Incorporation accelerates decomposition and destroys fungal networks. Surface feeding preserves structure. People worry about nitrogen tie-up, but that only happens when carbon is mixed into the root zone. Left on the surface, nitrogen cycling stays where microbes can manage it without starving plants. I measured this repeatedly by comparing beds side by side. Incorporated material caused early yellowing. Surface-fed beds stayed green. Hydroponic systems taught me the same lesson in a different way. Even in inert media like cocoa, coir or expanded clay, humus-like stability matters. When I ran systems with aggressive nutrient flushing and sterile practices, plants grew fast and then crashed. But when I slowed everything down, using lower EC, adding microbial inoculants and introducing small amounts of stable carbon like humic acids derived from lenodite, the system really stabilized. Roots stayed white longer, pH swings softened, and nutrient uptake became more consistent. Humus isn't just soil, it's a buffering system. A common piece of advice I strongly disagree with is finish compost first, then apply. Finished compost is fine, but, it's incomplete. It lacks the continuous carbon input needed to build long-term humus. Compost is a snapshot. Soil biology, on the other hand, is a movie. When you feed in place, microbes adapt to the root zone environment. That's why beds fed this way improve every season instead of resetting. Moisture control matters more than ratios. People obsess over carbon to nitrogen numbers, but in beds, moisture determines everything. Too dry and nothing happens, too wet and you invite anaerobic breakdown. I aim for the feel of a wrung-out sponge and then maintain it with mulch. In hot climates, I'll add an extra inch of straw or dried leaves on top to reduce evaporation. That top mulch isn't food, it's insulation. Within a year of switching to this approach, I stopped seeing hardpan layers. My shovel sank deeper with less resistance. Crops rooted wider and deeper. Pest pressure dropped, not because of sprays, but because plants with access to stable nutrition don't signal distress the same way. Yields became more predictable, especially in long-season crops like tomatoes and peppers. There are trade-offs. This method is slower in the first few months. You won't get that instant boost people associate with hot compost. But what you gain is persistence. The fertility doesn't wash away. Nutrients are released gradually. You stop chasing deficiencies and start managing abundance. For growers who actually track results over years, that matters more than quick wins. If you're used to neat beds, this can feel messy at first. Organic layers aren't pretty, but soil doesn't care about aesthetics, it cares about energy flow. Once you see black humus forming without effort, the mental shift happens. You stop managing waste and start managing biology. I'll say this plainly, compost piles are optional. Humus is not. If your goal is better food, healthier soil and less work over time, build humus where plants live. Feed the surface, protect moisture. Stop disturbing systems that are already doing the work for you. If this way of thinking challenges what you've been taught, well, that's the point. Subscribe to the channel if you want more experience-driven gardening that, really prioritizes results over tradition. Share this video with someone still turning piles and, honestly, wondering why their soil never improves. Better food starts with better understanding, and that's exactly what we're building here.